him by his pseudonym. Oh shit, we going.
Stardate.
Wow.
9291867.
No
Sure,
warning.
why not?
0 warning, Mike.
Welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a kind of smart, kind of funny podcast about new Star Trek and beyond. My name's Mike Garcia, your reluctant captain. With me on the view screen, we have
Mariah Gossett.
Clyde Haynes.
And Grant. As you can see, my name here. I just put Grant. That's it.
Good. It's good.
yeah.
I
Don't
feel like
find Grant
there's
on
a whole
social
lot of-
media.
I don't think there's a whole lot of Grants. It's like Madonna. I could be the only Grant if I just start going that direction.
Are you going to be
I
like
literally
those
know
people-
4 Grants.
Weren't there all those
Hey.
people who got together to have like a battle of the Joshuas to find the singular Joshua?
Oh, you know what? Back in like 2006, 2 years after Facebook came out, I started a group called Grant Davis's Unite, and I had like 30 different Grants as Grant Davises, all in that group.
Jeez.
I just never had the idea that we should fight each other Highlander style. I thought we could
Ooh.
just all like collaborate and like, maybe make a cool music video or something. That never happened.
There can only be one. Hey, Grant, I just gotta say thank you for letting me know we went live. I was about to start talking about Home Chickie, and the fact that we went live makes me know that I should just keep my comments to myself.
You're gonna talk smack about
No. No.
Guys, it's 9:02. Of course, we're live.
Yeah, we're always punctual. Always.
All right.
So fun.
Tonight we're going to talk about the TNG series premiere, Encounter at Farpoint. A few of us watched this a few days ago. Or was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday, right? With
Tuesday.
Yes.
it was Tuesday. We watched it with the patrons on Slack. And we're going to dive into it a little deeper, talking about Q, because Q is going to be probably a big part of Picard season 2 coming up. And we know there's tons of Q eps to potentially watch and analyze and theorize over for Picard season 2. Maybe too many Q eps. We're going to stick to maybe like 3 or 4 of the main ones that I think will be relevant for Picard season 2. So tonight we're talking about his first encounter with Picard and the Enterprise, Encounter at Farpoint. The TNG premiere came out in 1987. But before we dive into that, Mariah, can you tell everyone where they can find us?
Yeah, you can go to StarTrekPod.co to find links to everywhere we broadcast when we go live, as well as links to how you can subscribe to the audio only version of the show. But did you know you can also just watch us on replay on YouTube as well? And you can leave comments, and sometimes we respond to those comments too. So if you missed the live stream, make sure you engage with us later on. We love hearing your feedback. And again, that's StarTrekPod.co.
I think that even if you have like a computer farm and you could just go to every single computer and set it up to be constantly playing and looping back all of our episodes,
Perfect plan.
that's good. That's helpful for us.
Let us be the Bitcoin of podcasts.
Ooh.
It's bad for the environment, good for our numbers.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I don't know if I want to be the Bitcoin.
I'm going to jump in here to talk about another way you guys can support us, which is patreon.com/Star Trek Pod. There you can go and make a per episode donation, kick us $1 or $2. And if you give us $2 an episode, you can join us on our exclusive Slack channel, our Star Trek Slack channel. And why is that cool? Well, Mike actually just talked about it. The fact that, we do exclusive episodes, but there's also these little social hangs where all these Trek fans and these lovely folks that have joined us over there will set up and do viewing episodes and discussions about different episodes. And that's exactly what happened with this Q episode that we're going to talk about. Happened a couple days ago, and you could get in on that, join the community. It's a bunch of lovely people, and we would love to have you there as well. And you're doing a great thing. You're supporting a podcast that you like financially.
Grant, I gotta say, if you haven't participated in a watch along, you are truly missing out. So seriously, for $2 an episode, you can come to the Slack. I mean, there's a watch along going on just about every night, but it is a great fun. I have to say, I guess it was a couple months ago, our watchers and listeners, our viewers, challenged me to watch a Star Trek Enterprise episode. You know, I talk a lot of smack about how it's my least favorite series. They challenged me to watch one with them. And while I still don't know if I'm quite ready to watch on my own, it is a lot of fun watching them with a group of people and chatting about them. And so if you haven't had that experience, I highly suggest $2, join the Slack. You'll find us in there just about every night of the week.
All right,
good
very
time.
cool. Hey, Clyde, can you tell everybody how they can chat with us live?
Yeah, just start yelling at your screen
Yell.
and we'll hear you. No,
Like really loud.
yeah, just as loud as you can, wake people in your house. No, I would say if you are watching us live, then on whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch or wherever you are, type in a capital P, capital O, capital D in your chat. That'll get our attention that you have a comment or a question for us. But otherwise, have fun with the gang in the chat. Keep it respectable, and comment along with the show.
I have a question for y'all before we jump in.
Uh-oh.
What's your over under on how many times Q has appeared on a televised Star Trek?
I'm going to say 15 times.
Okay.
At least 10.
Okay.
I'm gonna go. I was thinking 13, but Grant said 15. I'm gonna take over. I'm gonna take Grant's over 15, more than 15 times.
So if we're playing Price is Right rules, Mike got it. It is 12 episodes.
I should have said 13. I would have been there.
Well, you got to do. You can't go over.
Can't go
Price
over.
is Right style.
Gotcha.
Ba-dum, ba-dum,
$1.
Has he only
doing the Bob Barker prices right now?
only appeared in TNG?
No.
Oh, is it the same actor?
Yeah.
Like in
Yes.
the other ones too? John
Yeah.
Gallant?
Or if you're just joining us, Grant is our Trek newbie, even though he's watched hours and hours of Star Trek that we've made him watch over the years. But mostly new Trek, right? Mostly Discovery and the new shows. So Grant is giving us his I guess this is going to be your first Q episode you've ever seen, so we'll get a fresh perspective on Q. Grant, Trek newbie. I know a lot of people like aren't big Q fans. He kind of splits the fan base a little bit. People love him, some people really hate him, and then some are just indifferent. I know there's a few patrons that we have that absolutely hate him, and it looks like some of those people are not here tonight because maybe they don't like Q. They're noticeably absent for sure. Yeah. But yeah, let's just dive into this episode. This is going to be a loose hand, guys. We're just going to talk about Q and kind of theorize about what he could be doing. And Picard kind of mining these old Q episodes for clues about what Q can be doing in Picard season 2, hanging out with a geriatric Picard, a geriatric robot Picard, as it were. All right. I think it's time for some hot freaks. All right.
There was certainly a hot freak in this episode.
That is very true.
In particular, he is Studley.
He's just so baby faced.
This is pre-beard, yeah.
Do you guys want to feel really old?
Yeah.
Every day. I look forward to feeling really old every day.
This episode came out a year before I was born.
What?
All right, it's been fun. Y'all have a good time. I'm out.
I didn't know you were going to make us feel old by pointing out how young you are. Wow.
Yeah. I got told today I look like I was in my 20s, so I'm going to just like live in it.
Wow.
All right, babyface, tell us what you thought about this episode.
Oh man, so I have never seen this whole thing before because I don't think this made it into the syndicated list or ones they routinely syndicated onto the WB CW, which is where
UPN.
I watched a lot of UPN. Yes, that's it. I was like, it's one of those. I can't remember UPN. I don't think this was on UPN very often. So I had never seen it. So it was quite a shock to see how they queued up this series from the beginning. You're welcome. But yeah, I was like, Picard is a dick. Riker is hot. Geordi is hot. I'm here for it. Diana Troy is in a tiny, tiny outfit. There's men also in tiny outfits, which I appreciated. Little mini skirts everywhere. But yeah, it was very interesting to see how all of these characters were introduced, including Q, who I'm most familiar with on Voyager when he would come and hang out in there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I saw this, I would be like, I'll give it 2 more episodes and I got to see where this is going. I do not think this pilot would make it past producers of today.
Well, no, I mean, come on.
Right.
You weren't even born when this pilot came out, Mariah. You got to have different standards.
You know.
I actually really enjoyed this. I haven't seen it in like a decade, and watching it again was a lot of fun because it's so weird how stilted the entire episode is and how everyone just seems so awkward with each other, right? The whole cast is like, it seems like nobody wants to be there. It definitely seems like Patrick Stewart doesn't really want to be there. Not that he doesn't give a good performance. He just gives kind of a stoic and then sometimes angry performance. And I guess that is what's that?
I hate kids.
Yeah. And that is part of the character. And those rough edges do get smoothed out over the course of the series, obviously. And that is a bit of an emotional arc for the guy. So he had to start somewhere and get somewhere, right? So I guess that kind of makes sense. But what I really liked about this episode was that, like in the original series, it was always about, Gene Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry's whole vision was every episode Kirk is going to show up on a planet or find a civilization that represents some kind of social problem in the 1960s. They're too racist, or they're very racist, or they're defined by sexism or something. And then Kirk's going to judge them and then fix them, right? We talked about this a little bit on the Slack hang, Clyde.
You forgot love them. He's going to judge them, love them, and then fix them.
He will love some of them, especially the green ones.
Oh, he's going to love them.
But in this episode, that's kind of flipped, right? We have the alien Q who shows up and tells the humans that they're the ones who are backwards. They're the ones who have the social problems. They're the ones who are regressive instead of progressive. And I just really like that kind of that flip. And it was, the pretense was gone in terms of like Star Trek telling us allegories, social allegories that are based on other alien civilizations. In this episode, it was just like, you humans are bad. You war, you murder, you kill. And that's why I'm not going to let you travel forth through the galaxy. Of course, that kind of gets erased as the series goes on. We go back to the Kirk formula where we find other aliens and we have that allegory with them. But I like the way they kind of turned the original Star Trek themes on its head here that way. And John Delancey is just so much fun to watch. He's so good in this. And when he's funny. When he's threatening, he actually feels threatening. And I love the costuming. But yeah, I know there's a lot of hot trash in this episode. But I enjoyed it. Grand Davis.
Me? What do I say about this? This is the third TNG episode you guys have tricked me into watching. The other ones were the Lower Decks episode and the one where Worf won't save that dude with his blood and Geordi is like stuck on a planet or something. I don't remember what was going on there. So this one I finally I think I got to see more of the team kind of operating with each other, where I didn't really see that in other episodes. And this was also long. This was a two-parter. I felt doubly tricked with having to watch this one.
I had lunch with Grant today, and he's like, "Oh, I still need to watch that episode. Do I have to watch it?" I'm like, "It flies by. Don't worry. It's not 90 minutes or anything."
I mean, there's lots of scenes where the ship flies by, if that's what you meant.
I don't know. This is kind of what I expected of the Next Generation. It's kind of slow and boring and a little bit awkward with its budget sets, and just seeing Picard get onto this weird elevator thing that slowly lifts up was just it was perfect. It was perfect for what I thought was going to be going on with the Star Trek sets. The introduction of the characters, I guess it's fine. I like the idea of having some people be on the ship, and then the device of having Riker and Crusher and that kid and Geordi all be on this other planet waiting to get picked up was a way to kind of break it up and introduce us as well as the people on the ship to each other. The episode itself, I mean, I know we're going to go a little bit more in depth into what Q's deal is, but from me not really being familiar with the rest of the world of TNG, it feels like what I was seeing here is Q basically being the conscience of Picard and the what's it called? What's the name of the ship? The Enterprise?
That one.
The Enterprise. Being this this guardian, this mentor who's basically trying to be like, you have the potential for greatness, and I'm going to challenge you in order to make you better on the other side. And I'm going to push you to make the argument for why humanity is better than its obvious historical demons, right? And I guess what my impression was prior to this was that he's just kind of a rascal and trickster. I didn't have this idea that he might be a trickster who's ultimately having kind of this motive for good in the universe. So that was interesting to me to see how he acts like the foe in order to get Picard and crew to show the best of what Starfleet and humanity can be.
He often claims to be that in the series, a force of good, trying to push these kids into where they could be or should be. But he does it in some very destructive ways that often you find yourself questioning whether or not that's his true motive or whether he just likes to fuck with people.
People are laughing at me because I didn't know the name of the ship.
Yep.
It's kind of iconic, yeah.
I mean,
if there's one ship you're gonna know,
it was also in Discovery and 3 Trek movies we all watched for this show.
I almost called it Discovery, and then I was like, that's not the name of it. What is it? It's like NC-17 or some shit. I don't know what it was.
Do not get me started on that.
Clyde Haynes, give me your hot freight.
It's interesting. So I made the comment earlier, I think in the Slack or on the Clubhouse, that I know I watched this when it came on because it was such a big deal in my household. I have no idea how I made it to episode 2. Right. And so you guys know that long time ago when we first met, I was part of a podcast called Pilot Watching. So watching pilots is something that I enjoy. I like watching the first episode and kind of breaking it down and looking at it. But the one thing that I know about pilots is it's even though they have a long time to work on it, you're getting a rough draft of what that show is going to be. And I'm always fascinated by when you look at a pilot and you have to think that there is a decision somewhere, a business decision where they go, yes, we're going to go forward. So if you jump into like season 5 or season 6 of Star Trek, The Next Generation, you see a crew that's incredibly intertwined and connected to one another. The stories are deep. We get backstories that are rich about everyone from Geordi to Worf to Data and his children and his siblings. Like there's so much meat when you look at this ensemble character, like the ensemble. We got none of that in the pilot, right? Like it was, you had no idea who would be a central piece of this show by the pilot. And I think, Mariah, you may have said it, and they looked like they hated each other, right? Like they were all reluctantly there.
I think someone in our Slack during the watch along said that like Patrick Stewart didn't even unpack his bags like through most of the first season. And I was like, honestly, after I filmed this pilot, I don't know if I would have either. I would have been like, they're going to get us 10 episodes in. Because again, these show like purchases were so much bigger back then. They're going to get 10 episodes in and just pull the plug. Like,
yeah. Yeah. It was definitely, I'm looking at this and going, okay, they're still really trying to figure this out. And the tone was harsh. So I look at that and go, and then you think about where we got to, the ability for them to work through that and to keep going, because I feel like today you get 3 episodes in and they'll pull that thing.
Yeah,
they will just cancel the whole thing. This is not working. If your ratings aren't high, if they don't believe in you, you're out of there. So as I'm watching this, and we look back now and we know that the tension between Crusher and Picard becomes something that we're not quite sure of for 7 seasons, right? You're always kind of rooting for it in the back of your head. You look at the heavy-handedness that was between Troy and Riker gets much more nuanced in the show.
The longing looks with the musical shift that tells you something's happened here.
I mean, hold up. First of all, if Picard actually has to ask the question, do you know each other? By the way, they're staring at each other
in silence.
In silence, a foot in front of him, he should be fired as captain because he has no perception.
And then there was the really bad double entendre where Picard's like, I always like to know I forgot exactly what he says, but I always love it when my officers know each other's capabilities. And then she's like, oh yeah,
capabilities.
I was a little confused though. Did she not know him by name? Like, did they like hook up or something? But like, she doesn't actually know his name because
no, she does. Imzadi
and like, William Riker is going to be joining us on the ship right next to her, and she wasn't like, oh. So it seemed like
I think she expected him, but she didn't expect the overwhelming emotion she had when she saw him, and she called him Imzadi, and that's like
beloved.
Yeah, beloved, right? That means beloved.
Oh, I didn't know what was going on with that weird like voiceover thing. I thought she was talking to her mom about something.
They were having a telekinetic moment.
Well, but that's the point though. Like you can look back now
not clear
and it all makes it's crystal clear what's going on. It's just the execution is a little sloppy. But to Grant's point, if you're watching this fresh, it's kind of like, huh?
I thought it was a Dear Diary to her mom about this time where she liked this guy, but it wasn't her talking to him at all. I never thought that.
Yeah, I can see that because you're also hearing like Picard's voiceover of his captain's log, right? So you're just like, oh, is this her log entry?
Yeah, it was kind of out of left field.
They got much better at knowing when and how to use the voiceover, and I feel like it gets much less.
It's more of a bookend type thing as it goes on. Yeah, it's less random. Kern says, "Can you guys see his comment?" Yeah, the director did a miserable job. Apparently, he did things so quickly that they had to film extra to pad the pilot. There's a lot of weird stuff going on behind the scenes in this pilot. This was written by DC Fontana, a longtime original series Star Trek writer. and she had written most of the Farpoint stuff, the actual Farpoint mission, without Q in the episode. And then Gene Roddenberry decided that he wanted to make this an event and pad it out to a 2-part series premiere. So he added the Q stuff without really telling her. And after that, the stories
connect the plots.
They did not connect. They didn't work together. And then they just kind of Frankenstein this thing together. So it definitely feels extremely disjointed. And then the climax at the end feels so very anticlimactic. Because humanity proves itself not to be savages because they allowed 2 jellyfish to bone in space.
They held tentacles.
Yeah. Could I get a little bit more explanation from you guys of what exactly was going on there? Like, it seems like this planet Farpoint was trying to sell a system thing to Starfleet. Be like, hey, we can set up little bases kind of like this. But what they were actually doing was exploiting these jellyfish that could make apples appear on a table or some shit, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The jellyfish could make anything appear. Yeah.
It's an energy being. Yeah.
So they were holding hostage some jellyfish alien magic beings to exploit them. But this wasn't actually a reproducible thing that they could market to Starfleet. So why were they doing it? It doesn't make sense.
Well, they wanted them to come and buy or rent the base. And that's why the issue that the Groppler, a guy named Groppler, yeah, he's not a bad guy. The Groppler was like, they were like, hey, can we get your engineers to come to some of our planets and make a base like this? He's like, no, well, we don't like to leave home. You have to buy this base and use it here, because obviously they had the jellyfish trapped, God knows where, creating the base for them. So the idea was that, Starfleet would come, pay rent or pay for the base, and the Groppler and his crew would run it, but they're not really running it. They're just getting easy money because all they have to do is make the jellyfish do whatever Starfleet wants.
Mm-hmm.
Well said, Mike.
This episode also does the Enterprise. Does the Enterprise? It's
in your name. You put it on the screen.
I realize
It's like right in front of you.
Does the Enterprise have any Vulcans on it, like as part of the main crew?
Not part of the main crew. No, Roddenberry wanted to depict new aliens and not show Vulcans that much, like because Spock was such a big presence. I think that was a mistake, but there are some Vulcans in the background of this episode when Worf goes to engineering.
I remember seeing like a guy and like a kid walk by that looked Vulcan, but I was like, oh, they're not. Is that not part of the crew, like a Vulcan there?
No, the I guess the Spock role with the outsider role in the crew is filled by Data, the android.
And who's the blonde lady? Because I don't remember her ever being on this show.
Oh, there's a reason you don't remember her. Would you like to know?
Yes.
Get him, Mike.
But she dies really quickly.
The Hot Freaks, like thing that we did. So that must be one of the early episodes, right?
Yeah, the Hot Freaks clip that you picked has.
That's her.
Yeah, it has Riker without the beard. So that's an early episode. Clyde, I don't remember. Does Tasha make it past season 1?
I don't think so.
Right.
What's so fascinating about this is, so her character's name is Security Chief Tasha Yar, and for someone who, when you think about the fact that the show was on 7 seasons, so when you think about the fact that she wasn't in that many episodes,
she was still on like 26 episodes.
Yes,
out of like 200.
Yeah, but the issue is her character is such a touchstone for some reason. Like, it's so memorable. It's almost like it's in remembrance of her. But it's fascinating that she dies a pretty I don't want to say insignificant, ridiculous is probably the right word, death. That it sticks out with everybody. It's ridiculous.
Okay.
Yeah, Home Chicky confirmed that Tasha dies in season 1.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, the speaking of Tasha, the funny thing in this episode is like we're talking about character development, which there's not much of in this episode. Right when Tasha is going to talk about her history and her character arc, she's talking about her reasons why she joined Starfleet and why, everyone should respect Picard and the crew. And all of a sudden, she just gets frozen. No character development from you, please. Please
I
stop.
thought she was going to die right there, and that was going to be the end of her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think if I think back to like the original series, I think you would get these moments where characters would show up and they give this kind of monologue backstory about that would give you some information, and it was almost as we're gonna stop that, and by freezing her and almost killing her in the moment, which is an interesting concept. However, I felt like we needed that information. It's kind of like I was really looking forward to hearing what she said.
Well, one of the things I was struck by in this episode was just how run and gun it begins. Picard just meets everybody, and all of a sudden Q shows up, and then they're thrust into this ridiculous situation. They separate the saucer section like before the 15-minute mark, and they're on the battle bridge, which I don't think we ever see again, maybe once or twice. And the ship is running around without the saucer, looking like a little ducky for like half the episode, which is just a strange iconography to have in your first episode, your first Star Trek episode. Like the ship doesn't look like the ship. A lot of weird choices in this, but I want to go back to Q, because when Grant was talking about Q, his take on Q, I think P.W. Gregory in the chat put it best. He says, amazing that Grant got this from that episode. I've always thought that was a later interpretation, so it's remarkable someone got that from this. Of course, he's talking about your Q interpretation, how Q sure is like a devilish trickster, but he's doing it to help humanity progress and reach its potential. And like I talked about earlier, Q does claim to do that, but I don't think I ever thought that when I first watched this episode or ever went back to it. Maybe further on, especially like in Voyager, when he actually like literally becomes buddies with some people in the cast, you kind of get that. But Mariah,
intuitive.
Yeah, exactly. Mariah, from the outset, did you ever think that Q was anything but not a force for evil, but a guy who just wants to, is just bored and wants to fuck with people?
He's so contrarian, right? Like he's like the ultimate contrarian. And so to me, he poses some interesting questions, but perhaps the tactics are never quite right to get to where I think he wants them to go. I mean, even from the get-go of this, I mean, it doesn't help that this plot was so disjointed that I was like, I think they would have come to this conclusion of this episode without having this back of mind idea that they're being judged. Like, to me, this was just the logical progression of a Starfleet officer's choices would be to be like, something's fishy here. You know, like Riker doesn't know what's going on with Q, and he's already a little suspicious of what's happening. You know, it's like, I feel like we didn't need him to be like, you must prove humanity is worth saving by saving jellyfish lovers. And like, we could have gotten there without, you know, the lesson still would have been there without Q being there, to me. And instead it was like, I mean, I appreciate, and I think we should, a lot of folks should be reminded about the awfulness of humanity more often. I think if we reflected on our history more often as a society, maybe some things would not be happening currently. Especially the Texas legislature really doesn't like cracking open a history book, but I digress. Maybe Q needs to go fuck with the Texas legislature more than he needs to fuck with Starfleet. Like, I need someone to dress up as John Delancey as Q and go waltzing in to the Capitol building this week. Would be great.
I nominate Grant Enterprise Davis.
It would be fantastic. However, I do think the thing I love about Q is pure campy television. He is maniacal. He's like, when he shows up, you know it's going to be the wackiest episode you've watched in a long time. You're going to enjoy the ride, which is why I thought this was such a weird episode to me, because normally when Q shows up, I'm like, oh, he's here. What the heck is going to happen? You have no idea what's going to happen that time. And whereas this, I was like, okay, well, the outfit slaps, and the weird throne that's on like a tongue thing is interesting. And then there's very problematic characters in this courtroom.
Big time
problematic stuff in that courtroom. So I don't know. Mixed bag for me on this particular episode, but normally I enjoy the contrarian nature of Q.
Yeah, I think Mike, you've mentioned before that this trickster, and I think you've referenced him to a bit like the Loki character. My issue is that often when we see a trickster character, we see tricksters among equals, right? And so we see like there is some semblance of a power dynamic that is a bit shared. Here, what we're seeing is omnipotence, omnipresence. Q is everything and everywhere. And what's interesting about that is his actions denote that, but it's really about being silly. And I didn't think there was enough fear if that's the case, right? And there never is. It's actually like Picard is never actually afraid of Q. Like the way they talk about him or the way they talk to him, when actually what you're dealing with is someone who is literally all powerful.
Yeah, but I thought that like Picard kind of addresses that in that he's like, yeah, this guy's obviously God level power. So at the end of the day, what can I really do? The only thing I can do is just be true to myself and keep doing what I was going to do, because I'm not going to be able to, like, if this guy wants to stop me, he'll just stop me. So, I think that's kind of what Q was aware of too. And he's like, it seems like he's his lodestar, right? He's basically like, I'm here to guide you, but I'm not going to do it through a direct path. I need to challenge you, and you need to feel adversarial to me in order for you to have the conviction to make the choice to be the type of person you need to be the captain of this ship, and to remember that you always need to be focused on not reverting to the baser nature of what humanity is, to be aggressive and cruel, but to be compassionate and considerate in all your actions going forward. And I mean, it felt like it's the new mantra that they wanted to kind of push for the next generation versus the womanizing punch him in the face first Kirk that maybe they had in the original series.
Yeah, very much. It was definitely Gene Roddenberry telling the viewers, hey, grapple with your past and your present. We are still pretty savage. But in the future, there's hope. In the future, we can be like the Federation. We can put aside war and crime and hate and anger and replace that with and cynicism, take cynicism away and replace it with camaraderie, compassion. And we can progress. And I think that's a big theme that he was trying to push here in a not so subtle way.
It was sloppy as hell.
I mean,
it's pretty sloppy.
Mike, I like what you're saying. There's just one problem. I don't have the legs for the skirt, man. I don't have. Like, I'm all for a future where we've pushed past our savageness, but we have to change up the wardrobe because I don't have the legs for it, man. I'm sorry.
I mean, thick thighs save lives, so I think if all the more power to some skirts.
Just maybe a few more pleats in it, and then you have a little more flexibility.
I need a couple more inches in it. I mean, I need something
maybe a skort,
I mean, I got some junk back there. It's the thing gonna rise up. It's not gonna.
It's not gonna work out in the end.
No, I need a little more fabric.
Well,
The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting about the Q introduction generally is like, this just seems so like, if you're introducing someone to new characters, like the idea of bringing in someone who is so campy like Q into this world, it tonally sets a very it just like clashed so hard with how serious and tight and like cold everyone was, whereas John Delancey is just like, this is my stage, I own everything. And
Literally.
I think someone in the comments mentioned, like, I don't know how this campy character is going to fit into this new adult drama world of Picard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny. You guys, I remember you guys saying something about when Riker comes in, he's kind of awkward and he's not good until he grows his beard and then he gets really good. But I thought he was super charming in this first episode. I thought he came in with all the right, not just like swagger, but like just general like likability. And I was already like on board with this version of Riker, and I'm not really familiar with the beard version and how that's going to change things. But
I think he gets much better. Like I wasn't a fan really in the way he interacted with Geordi, the way he interacted with Data. There's definitely were some kind of overt power things at play, and if you think about Data as a vehicle to talk about racism, there were some issues there. But the Jonathan Frakes smile is super charming.
you know what? You're right though. Like in the very beginning, there was this like weird scene where Geordi like comes up to him a little bit too casually, and he like dresses Geordi down apropos of nothing. There's like no one else around, and he's like, "You better call me with respect," or like, I was like, "The fuck, dude!" Like,
yeah, he hasn't found his Bill Clinton vibe yet. Right? Like I've always looked at it as we get to a point where Riker
means
well, if
I
you think
don't know if that's like the best analogy anymore.
well, I mean, what I look at is Riker's got this charming, he becomes this very charming, cool, like able to connect with just about anyone. He plays in this case, a trombone. He plays a trombone, he plays poker. Like Riker is like the epitome of power, authority, cool, right? And he is a womanizer. So he's the cool, he's cool. He's not there yet.
okay.
I do wonder if
I
like
found him pretty charming in this episode too. I don't think that that Riker is bad before the beard. I think the show itself doesn't get great until he grows the beard, I think is the thing.
I think Riker is a good bridge character to take you from Kirk to Picard as well, because he is that middle ground of like a lot of the things we like about Kirk without a lot of the things you don't love about Kirk, right? Like he's not as quick to draw, quick to trigger kind of a person.
Right. But going back to your earlier point, Mariah, I know I kind of took us on a unnecessary tangent about Riker himself, but Q, John Delancey's character, clearly feels so much more comfortable and at home in this show than everyone else who's still trying to feel out their longer term roles. And I wonder if that's a little bit more also attributed to someone who's cast as a guest spot in a show versus someone who's like, you have to figure out and define this character, and that's going to take some time over a series of episodes where you're going to have to work toward that. Whereas you have a character actor who just gets to ham it up, and we're immediately going to gravitate toward that,
I think it's also a case of the show not knowing its tone yet, and maybe like, the story of how this episode came to be. The two writers didn't really collaborate while working on this episode or creating this episode. So it only stands to reason that the actors didn't really talk to each other much about the tone. There weren't tone meetings, and Delancey probably just showed up the day before and was like, "Okay, cool, I'm gonna puck it up."
I mean, he had quite the like. I was looking at his IMDb of like what he was doing up to next gen. He had such a good run in 86 to 87. It was Twilight, the new Twilight Zone, MacGyver, Murder She Wrote, and then Star Trek. And I was like, way to hit like all the heavy hitters of the 80s. Like,
Wow. I also think we have to be careful about judging or critiquing storytelling of the late 80s with a 2021 mindset, right? Because I think one of the things that we're all picking up on is they will get to the mid 90s where they figure out ensemble, right? And they're probably at that point on the forefront of ensemble.
yeah.
Yeah.
When did Cheer? So Cheer. Well, so here's the thing, though. I feel like Cheers is 82 and is such a strong ensemble pilot. MASH was also around the
Thought
same
about that.
time. Another really strong ensemble pilot. So I think I agree with you, Mike. I think they were trying to figure out the tone. And a lot of these shows went through that, right? Like MASH started out much more serious
Mhm.
than where it ended up, right? Like the levity started to come into it. But yeah.
I'm with you, Mariah, but I look at it and go, do we have an example of a drama, an hour-long drama that really gets ensemble right? Right? Because
Back then?
comedy back then, because comedy, I
Yeah.
think, lends itself to ensemble.
Right.
Drama, because I think about the original series, and the original series felt like it was very Kirk focused.
MASH
Right, with
kind of depressing, like a drama.
Yeah, there were too many jokes. There were too many
Yeah.
There's
jokes.
too many jokes.
Clyde,
Yeah.
probably the best example is Hill Street Blues, but
That's a good one.
that was a crime show. It was a cop show.
Yeah.
It was more like it was very episodic, though. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think they were trying to figure out that tone, and they're gonna get it. And when they get it, it is going to set the standard for sci-fi ensemble.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that there's still a lot of just kind of obvious flaws about the episode, you know, aside from tone and like the ensemble not like clicking yet, not really knowing that. The story structure, as you guys already pointed out, just wasn't there. This doesn't feel cohesive. It's not really the most exciting way to kick off a show that you're trying to reboot a franchise of. And there are elements that I think, you know, now in hindsight are iconic and people love, but it's very different nowadays how I think people approach doing an homage to a franchise as well as bringing a new audience in. And it's kind of clear that this episode, or this two-parter here, was sloppily kind of piled together from a couple different areas and doesn't translate as well.
Yeah, it's true. It's like they were making this and crossing their fingers the whole time because they didn't really have it down, you know.
It's interesting because I'm reminded of, didn't we have concerns about Discovery similarly, that the first few episodes in Discovery there was a lot of drama going on behind the scenes, changing showrunners and things like that?
It was tonally dark, and I think you guys are kind of a little bit more surprised at like how heavy it was. But that was more of like, this is what I was used to seeing in a lot of TV shows, and I was just like, oh, cool, this is awesome, this is how it should be. And you guys are like, no, but Trek should be a little bit more optimistic. And I was like, I don't know any difference.
It got there eventually.
Yeah.
Well, since we know Q, John Delancey is going to reprise the role of Q in Picard season 2 coming up in January. And the reason we know that, we talked about it a few weeks ago. Delancey was on a panel for First Contact Day with Picard, Patrick Stewart, and they announced, yeah, he's coming back. And we still don't know how many episodes John Delancey is going to be in season 2 as Q, but
I heard, rumor
Mhm.
has it, he's on for a 2-season arc.
right. Yeah. He's been doing a lot of cameos lately, cameo.com, and he's kind of spilling the beans on his character a lot in season 2 of Picard with those cameos.
Awesome.
Apparently he's been talking about filming episodes for 2 seasons of Picard. Apparently they're filming seasons 2 and 3 back to back, and he has scenes with every major character, and he's at least slated to film 6+ episodes, so he's going to be around for
What
a
if
while.
this is all a lie? What if this was all just like a total red herring? They're just like, we're going to throw this out there to throw them all off the scent from the reality, which is we're actually going to just have a Michelle Hurd and Jerry Ryan spinoff show.
Then
Fine with
well done on your marketing, because you've got us all talking about it and way to own the lull between shows. Congratulations, you got me.
But I mean, you guys are more familiar with what Q does in later episodes. Is he kind of consistently a thorn in Picard's side that is ultimately trying to get him to come to a better conclusion about certain things? Like,
Sometimes
Yeah,
he's always a thorn in Picard's side, and
Sometimes
Picard
it's
always
just a
hates
little
seeing him.
stir the pot moment.
yeah. I was thinking he is the uncle that shows up unannounced at the door to cause a little bit of havoc. If you think of Pietro in WandaVision, Q's kind of like that.
so
You mean
is it-
Ralph Boner?
Yeah, Ralph Boner.
It- Is it that the writers are inconsistent with how they want to portray him then? Or
I don't think so. There is
are they not sure what Q should be or what his ultimate goal is?
no, I think there is a goal with Q to push Picard and crew to where they can be to and there's in an episode that we're going to watch, I think in a few weeks, he definitely does that, but there's always these dangerous consequences. So he does definitely act like a disconnected god being, just playing chess with human lives. So he, in his own way, he is trying to help humanity progress, but he does it so recklessly that people die, terrible things happen, and he doesn't really give a shit.
That's what I was kind of wondering. Do we ever end up seeing, after all these years of this kind of relationship between him and Picard and crew, that maybe he starts to show he does give a shit?
Yes. Q does grow as a character. Sometimes it is inconsistent, but by the time we get to the finale, which works really as a piece with the series premiere, which is pretty impressive since they're like 7 years apart, that relationship doesn't necessarily come full circle, but it does deepen very much, the relationship between Q and Picard, to where if you've seen that, you can kind of get why Q will be showing up in Picard season 2, kind of at the end of Picard's life. It makes sense that the character would want to be there.
He even at one point offers Picard the opportunity to become a Q.
Really?
I know he does that to Riker. Does he do that to Picard too?
He with Vosh, the offers for both of them to just go, to join the continuum and to explore and fulfill every archaeological fantasy Picard has ever had.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then what do you guys like? What's kind of your expectation, or what do you think is going to be the relationship and the dynamic between him and Picard then?
Somebody want to take it?
I mean, the themes they've set us up to believe is it has something to do with going back to fix a regret. And so I don't know if this is the point where Q finally has a soft moment for Picard now that Picard is technically not a human anymore. and what does that look like as far as how their relationship works, since Q is around to test humanity. And so I
Right.
guess we're going to have to test Picard's non-human humanity.
I am trying not to be cynical. But I look at this and go, I can't get past the business side of this. And if you were to ask me, or if I were to ask you, of all the current, so first let me ask, of all the current Star Trek franchises, what is your least favorite?
Enterprise. Or
Current Picard.
Picard.
Where would you put Picard in all of the franchises ever?
Above Enterprise and Voyager. That's it.
I don't think I would put it above
How
Voyager.
dare you do that to Voyager?
I know. He's poking
We
at
all
you,
have
Mariah.
opinions.
I would
We're all
put
entitled.
everything that came before it.
Well, I asked that question because I look and go, if you're on the production side of this and you see you've got a franchise with someone like Patrick Stewart, you kind of look and go, what can we do to really bring some excitement to it? Right. And what we've been talking about is John Delancey will absolutely bring something interesting and some light to the show. And then you also talk about bringing in Whoopi Goldberg, right? Who, oddly enough, was a beloved character on TNG, but now has an infinitely larger fan base, right? So you're bringing,
I haven't seen anything about her in production, and she's still showing up every day for The View.
The only thing I've seen about her is Delancey saying he does have scenes with her and he annoys the hell out of her. So,
yeah.
So Guinan is her name?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she was a bartender / counselor for people's problems.
She was more of a counselor than Troy was.
I mean,
she's kind of like an eternal being.
Yeah.
She's like thousands of years old, has a lot of wisdom. Yeah.
Okay. So when Dennis was talking about in that question here, do you think it'll be Guinan versus Q in season 2? Do they kind of play on opposite sides of the spectrum, where Q is a little bit more of this agent of chaos and Guinan is a little bit more of this grounded sage soul?
Very much, yeah.
Yeah, I've always seen her as an oracle figure.
Okay.
Very much, but there is an interaction between Guinan and Q in season 2 of TNG, where we find out that they've had dealings a few centuries before, and they both hate each other, and they kind of do finger puppets at each other, like "stay away." But that's all that comes to that.
Okay.
It's just kind of hinted at that they have a history, and Q is very bothered by her.
But tell me that if you look at this and you know that is a possibility, right? And no one here has said Picard is my favorite franchise. You're interested in seeing that, right? And I think it was P.W. Gregory says she and Q have a history that's unexplored. Absolutely. Who here doesn't want to know about that? Right? So it's driving our attention to Picard, right? Not to mention there's some characters that I still want to know more about, right? Namely the ship. But this has gotten our attention. So I am absolutely interested in it. So when you ask me what do I think the point is, I think the point is for it to be interesting.
I think in the if you watch the finale of TNG, when Q picks up this trial again with Picard, and we have this conclusion to it, and even in this episode, Q makes references to how humanity can further evolve and might be able to, and at the end of the series, he brings that up again, and Picard says he believes that humanity can evolve in many different ways as we go on. And I think if you think about that, in season 2 of Picard, like Mariah was saying, has evolved. He's transcended humanity. He's still Picard on the inside, I guess, but he has a synthetic body. So what does that mean? Does that mean that he is closer to being an eternal being like Q? And what does that mean for their relationship? And are Q really just humans who have evolved with technology that is so advanced that it seems like magic? And it's Picard himself heading that way? There's a lot of cool things to potentially explore in season 2.
Yeah.
I like
mean-
Agreed.
Oh no, you go ahead, Grant.
I like the idea that Picard season 1 was this exploration of this kind of existentialism for Picard at the later years of his life, kind of reflecting on past regrets in the first season as well, and what could have been. And we get this, for as much as there's other problems and things that we didn't enjoy in the season, I thought that the send off that Data got was touching. I thought it was well executed, as well as Picard kind of being able to confront and address some of these things in his life that he felt didn't go the way he had hoped. And if that's going to be something they explore a bit further in this second season, using or with Q kind of jumping in there to help him navigate those, even if it's in a way that's tedious for him and a little bit of a chore and a challenge, there ultimately could be something beautiful that comes out the other end of that, which does, to your point, Clyde, the bringing Q in could make this something that is more interesting and something I do want to explore. And Picard does seem to be a show that plays off of a lot more of the pain of life and humanity than the other ones. And there's something kind of brutal but also beautiful about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna call my shot here. This is what I think is gonna happen. We're going to get, why is everybody laughing? No, I'm serious.
I'm ready.
This is what we're gonna get. We're gonna get a Quantum Leap-esque show where Q gives Picard the opportunity to go back in time and fix the regrets, and I'm going to say largely of his life and the things around him. And maybe not for the entire season, but we'll get some episodes where that's what it's looking like. And you can think of Q kind of as the owl character with a little bit more trickery and more comedy.
Yeah,
How are
that's
they?
that's a good call.
I just don't think they're going to recast have younger versions of everyone, or have to digitally.
They're going to
edit all
use that de-aging stuff that they
Mhm.
used on the Irishman.
Just de-age everyone. Okay.
Mhm, mhm.
And Star Trek has already proven that they can successfully create episodes in which modern day actors and characters are inserted into old 60s Star Trek episodes. They did that with DS9 really successfully. And they did it with Voyager too, and that was back in the 90s. So they can totally Forrest Gump this shit.
So you think it might be a little bit of It's a Wonderful Life or something like that, where you kind of explore your regrets, but he gets the opportunity to start changing all of these and realizes that the future that those choices create aren't actually what he wants for the future.
It's interesting you say that because we've been there before with Picard and Q. There's an episode we're going to watch in a few weeks called Tapestry, where that exact same thing happens, and that's the theme of the episode. So we're going to get some kind of twist on that, because I don't think they would just redo that trope for a brand new series.
And you got to think, we know a lot more about time travel. So, Picard's not going to buy an almanac and leave it in the DeLorean. He's going to be much more conscious and thoughtful about his time travel.
I am wondering if they're going to use these next 2 seasons to set up essentially the temporal wars that led to where Discovery is now, right? Because we still have a pretty large gap of time that hasn't been filled in as far as what we know has happened in this universe. So I would wonder if they're going to use that opportunity. I know this isn't going to be true, but in my mind, this would be really fun. Is if at the very end, Q dissolves and has Michelle Yeoh become the new Q, and then so our next series is just Michelle Yeoh doing Q fuckery.
I'm here for it.
Right?
I'm in. You had me at Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, I mean that's all you have to say for me to watch
really
it.
right.
So
That could be cool. Passing the torch to someone else. Because I mean, I'm still down for Michelle Yeoh, just being her character. But
well, yeah, but it's like her with Q powers.
Could be good. Could be good. All right, guys. Anything else to say about this episode? Really about Q. I know we're going to watch a few more Q episodes coming up, and believe it or not, the character does evolve a little bit from what I remember. So, are you guys excited about more Q?
I think that the concept of having this eternal watcher being who does like to occasionally interject themselves into the lives and happenings of key figures within the universe, in particular Picard, I guess. It's an interesting element of the Star Trek universe, and if handled with care, with good writers, could be a really fun thing. It could also be a tedious trope. I'm not sure.
I'm always fascinated by the other Q that typically accompany or comes with Q. Like we get, Corbin Burnson and Susie Plaxon. So I'm mildly interested in seeing how much more Q and the continuum that we get as this goes on. So I'm along for the ride for a little bit more.
Oh wait, was that dude from Discovery who's like reading the newspaper in the bowler hat? Was he a Q then?
No,
he was a guardian.
Yeah,
the Guardian of Forever.
Different.
Okay,
That's another podcast. Yeah.
All right.
It's a good episode of the original series, though.
It's like the best episode. Yeah, it's so good.
It's one of my faves. The only thing I have to say about this episode is they did DeForest Kelly super dirty with that old age makeup.
That's who that was? Okay.
They also gave him terrible dialogue.
Awful.
And
why is he all of a sudden
ancient?
have this redneck accent?
Yes.
Hey, boy. What is happening?
And just the words that come out of his mouth are so ridiculous for that time period. They were ridiculous for his time period, let alone in 100 years in the future.
I'm just like, if you're gonna give me I love DeForest Kelly, how are you gonna do this to my doctor? I hated it.
Such a weird scene. I mean, I like
37 years old. Yeah.
I like seeing him, but all of a sudden he's Foghorn Leghorn.
Yes.
Also, why did you have to give him such old age makeup? Like, I know he was already fairly old, just get in the grooves a little bit,
Yeah.
Because he's 137, Mariah.
And it has never used retinol cream. Come on.
Never. He's all natural, baby.
His overalls were on point. Foghorn Leghorn.
I will say a couple things that this episode did that made no sense to me was there just wasn't a gradual transition to getting us used to the crew or the ship before they damn near tried to break it all. Listen, I think the fact that the saucer separate and the battle bridge can separate is great. I did need it in the pilot.
Right.
I didn't need that.
Yeah.
All right. We're coming up on the end of the hour, past the end of the hour. Wow. Had a lot to say about this episode. This 90-minute super
Blast
awesome
from
episode.
the past.
It was great.
Loved it.
All right. Next time in about 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about another pretty significant Q episode, Q Who. It's a season 2 episode. It's where Q introduces
who?
Come on now. You said you weren't going to do that joke.
I didn't do the joke I was about to do, so I'm stopping.
Q introduces everybody to the Borg. So that's a huge deal. And that's actually a pretty badass episode, in my opinion. I've seen it recently and I really enjoyed it. So I can't wait to talk about it. We'll be back in a couple weeks. What do we do now? Oh yeah, Mariah, tell everybody the thing.
Yeah, you can follow us on places. You can go to StarTrekPod.co to listen to us on audio only links or to find links to where you can watch this replay. You can also find links to like our Patreon and stuff. You should also engage with us on social media. We're at Star Trek Pod and all of those things. Shouts to Karen and to James who help us out with all of those things. And I think this is now where we plug our social media because I took everybody else's lines. You're welcome.
Well, I just want to say if you do decide to donate $2 and you want to join the Slack channel at patreon.com/Star Trek Pod, we are watching CSI Star Trek. It's a mashup of detective like shows in the Star Trek universe tomorrow. So if you watch this on Friday, we are doing, like I said, it's almost every night. I don't know that I will be there on Friday, but the gang will be. So if you get a chance, come on by and check it out.
All right, and find us at StarTrekPod.co. Grant, where can people find you online?
Baron Von Grant. Look that up.
Clyde.
At Clyde Haynes on Twitter.
Mariah.
I'm at Mariah Gossett. That's Mariah with a Y and a Gossett with 2 S's and 2 T's.
Find me on Twitter at Mike Moody Garcia. And for now, live long and prosper.
Bye.